Hello and welcome to the Leadership Cashiers Sponsor Spotlight. My name is Angela Owen. It is my privilege to serve as the program director and the host for today's Sponsor Spotlight, brought to you by the Cashiers Area Chamber of Commerce. Today we have two incredibly special guests. We have Western Carolina University's Chancellor, Dr. Kelli Brown, and First Gentleman, Dennis Brown. Welcome to today's Sponsor Spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, let me just give a very brief introduction. Both of these leaders have an incredibly long resume of great experiences. Let me start with Chancellor Brown. She took office as the 12th Chancellor of Western Carolina University in July 2019, becoming the first ever permanent woman chancellor for the university. Congratulations on that. She previously served as Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs at Georgia College and State University. In July 2016, Chancellor Brown was appointed interim president of Valdosta State University, a regional comprehensive university in southern Georgia. She served in that capacity until a permanent president took office in January 2017, after which she then returned to her position at Georgia College. In addition to her leadership at Georgia College, she has taught undergraduate and graduate students and has served in academic leadership roles at the University of Florida, University of South Florida, Illinois State University, and Western Illinois University. Western Carolina University is certainly blessed to have you there now. Thank you so much for being here. Let me turn now to introduce just a little background on Dennis Brown, who now serves as Western Carolina University's first ever First Gentleman. This is the latest in a long line of titles for a man who has done everything from U.S. Army Field Artilleryman, thank you for your service, sir, to fast food worker, laborer, from an agriculture and test engineer to manufacturing engineer, systems analyst, and IT project manager. I can tell that I have a lot that I can learn from you two leaders today, so thank you so much. Why don't you start by just telling me a little bit more about your backgrounds and what brought you to Cullowhee and Western Carolina University?
Well, I'll start, and I will say that my background is public health, and so my background is in teaching and education and public health. I will say the thing that attracted me to Western Carolina University was its emphasis on student teaching and the engagement, and that is one of the counter or the foundations that Western Carolina University has, and so that is kind of what brought me here. I think along the way, all those jobs that Dennis said that he has, when we first met, and I'll let you kind of tell the story, but we first met, I was a professor at Western Carolina University.
Western Illinois.
Oh, Western Illinois University, that's right.
We love Western Carolina so much, it's hard to...
That's right. Western Illinois University, I was a faculty member there. He was going back to school, and we met there. And from that point on, we've now been married for 32 years. And all those roles that he talked about are roles because he's been a traveling spouse. And I will tell you that has been part of my success, is having someone like Dennis to be able to be a partner in this role. Being a chancellor or a provost of an institution or other academic leaders can be challenging at times. It takes me away from the home life, but he's been a great partner in that, in coming here.
I think you pretty much summed it up. As we met, I had a varied background at the time that we met, but she was already well known and respected in her field, and so I said, well, wherever you want to go, whatever you want to do, I will support you. And something would come up, we would talk about it, she would pursue it, and she would take off, and here she went, and I'd find something else in my career to do. So it's a great partnership. I think that's the way we approach things.
It's an incredible example of that partnership that you're providing for the rest of us. So thank you both so much for what you're doing and how you're leading in that way. I also saw a little tidbit that you've been on a couple of magazine covers, Chancellor. One of those, I think, was a rodeo cover. Was that accurate?
That is accurate. So I was, when I grew up, we raised and showed quarter horses in Ohio, and I was Miss Rodeo Ohio. Went and participated in Miss Rodeo America, and I'm on a couple of covers of magazines with my rodeo hat, my my tiara and horseback. And so, yeah, so I have not been, riding since probably, since I started college. So when I actually started college, started my bachelor's degree back in the early 80s, I've not been riding since then competitively, but I was a competitive horse rider and learned a lot about independence and also competitiveness. And I'm pretty competitive when I'm on a horseback. So we'll just leave it at that.
I love it. I love it. I grew up with a quarter horse of my own, but never rode competitively. So
Wonderful.
we'll have to exchange some stories. Tell us a little bit about Western Carolina University and what is so special about this great school, and how would you describe the things that guide the university as far as values and such?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So Western is, it's been around about 131 years, started out as a teacher's college. And the original intent was, it was an institution to educate the people of the mountains. And that was really important. And we have continued that tradition to that day. And what I mean by that is we continue to really focus on Western North Carolina, making sure that we are training educators and engineers and healthcare providers in all different kinds of areas to be able to stay in Western North Carolina. Mm-hmm. So we continued that emphasis on that. We are an institution that has a number of undergraduate degrees. We have doctorate degrees. We have master's degrees. We have a site in Cullowhee as well as at Biltmore, where we have many of our graduate programs that happen to be online. But we also have 8 online undergraduate programs that, again, to allow that workforce to continue to work, to be able to get a quality education at an affordable price. My predecessor, Chancellor Belcher, would talk about the affordability of Western, and we've continued that tradition on being affordable. We want our students to leave with as minimal debt as possible. And at the same time, we also value our quality of our academics. So I would compare the academic rigor that we have at the undergraduate level and master's level compared to anyone, and our students gain that at Western. But we are a place where students can come and be able to get a quality education at an affordable price. And 40% of our students are Pell students, which means that they are typically first generation. So a lot of our students, we actually change the trajectory of their families. They come here, they get a degree, they go off, and they change their families' lives as well as their lives. And so something that we're quite proud of here at Western. We continue that with our NC Promise program that I could talk about later if you'd like for me to.
What a powerful history, and really shaping the future for so many young people and their families of moving forward in the future. Dennis, tell us a little bit about your role as the first gentleman. What does that entail, and how is that going for you right now?
Well, we've been doing this now for about a year. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, stepping into it, I really didn't know what to expect, what to do. Being the spouse of the leader of a university, that in of itself can be a challenging role to transition into. But being the first gentleman probably has added a little bit uniqueness to that. Mm-hmm. I will tell you that it's been wonderful. Kelli and I talk about this frequently, that we are so fortunate to be able to be here mm-hmm. and share this area and the beauty and the culture and the people of this area is mm-hmm. just absolutely phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I enjoy, obviously, we've talked about it, it's a partnership. That's how we view things. We know who has the lead role, but I enjoy all the other activities that we're engaged with, from the athletics to the performing arts. We have a fantastic marching band. There's just so much here to enjoy and engage with. Even though I am officially retired from working, I still have a full-time job here.
He does. Well, let me add one thing to that, Angela, I think is really, really interesting. So he's referred to as the first gentleman officially. About a year ago in July, we were having a large alumni meeting here, and our head of our alumni association at the time, a man by the name of Ed Holland, introduced Dennis as, he said, he's the first gentleman. He said, but I'm going to refer to him now as the first dude. So Dennis is now the first dude at Western Carolina University. And I had a transition team that helped me transition. They also, which I thought was wonderful that Western thought about this from a leadership perspective, is they created a transition team for Dennis. And so Dennis's transition team actually took him around to a number of businesses, have introduced him to business owners, a number of things. And so that's been wonderful. So what that meant was early on, we would go into a business or a store and they would know Dennis and they'd say, "Hey, Dennis." And I'm like, "What about me?" He's like, "Well, this is the chancellor," And so I thought that was so smart of Western. When you think about leadership, I think that is one of the things to think about is it's not just the leadership transition for me, but what is about the leadership transition for that spouse or that other person that may be following along. And I thought that was something wonderful that Western did. And I've told others about that, and everyone's been somewhat surprised or they find that unique, and it's worked out well here, I think.
Yeah, that transition team was very good.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's the spouse or maybe any other family members,
Mm-hmm.
that transition team really, really was helpful for me.
That's a great example of leadership in action. I would love to know from each of you, what was something that you found surprising in your transition? What was something about our area that was surprising and special to each of you? This is kind of off script here, but
Well, I will say, when I interviewed, people talked about, I could read about the academics and all the wonderful things, but the two things that they talked a lot about was pride and passion. And they kept saying the pride and passion that people have for Western Carolina University. And I kept thinking, oh, well, that sounds Chamber of Commerce like, and yeah, who's not going to, it is the darn truth. I mean, when I talk to alumni, when I talk to business owners, when I talk to community members, not just in Jackson County, but in all of Western North Carolina, people are so proud to have Western Carolina University here. They look at us as kind of foundation to what it is that it brings to this area. We're the second largest employer in Western North Carolina. People look to us. And so that pride and passion, I met a 1941 graduate of Western Carolina University. She couldn't talk more about Western Carolina and what it meant to her and I all along the way as I talked to folks, that pride and passion. Recent graduates this past December talk about what Western meant to them. That is something that you can't package. You can't explain that. You don't get that. You get that because you have great faculty, great staff who are invested in Western Carolina University. That's what makes this place a special place. You can't put it on paper. You can't bottle it up, but it just happens and it's magic. And that's what I have found, I think, the most interesting and fascinating since I've been here.
And Kelly's talking about it from an alumni, staff, employees, and folks in the region. But for one of the things that I have found, and I guess it was somewhat surprising, not unexpected, but the people here and the culture here is just so alive and so vibrant, and the people are so genuine, forthright, and I think it's just a way of life here, and it's kind of the way I was raised. Was your word was your bond. A handshake meant the world, and that's what we experience every day here, and that means so much. And being in other areas, that's not always true.
Right.
So it's something that we truly value here.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so encouraged to hear how well you both have just bridged right in here, recognizing the rich culture in this community. And Chancellor, as you're speaking, I can almost hear the first note coming off of Western Carolina's band out there, the Pride of the Carolinas. They beam with that first note. They're playing, and that's what I hear in my ear when I hear you speaking of that pride for the university.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. Well, let's talk about your leadership styles. This is a leadership program, and we really strive to help build community leaders who understand and engage in the community at large. How would each of you describe your leadership style, and what advice would you have for community leaders?
You want to take that first?
Well, let me start. You mentioned at the beginning a varied professional background for me, starting from the military all the way up to being IT project managers. And I think in all of those, one of the things, and part of the way I was raised, it's a leadership style of don't ask anybody to do anything that you would not do yourself. And you set that example and you're engaged with that. And it's always, what can I do to help you complete this assignment? Well, what have I given you the tools? What are your questions? How can I assist you? And sometimes that meant long hours just sitting there at the keyboard, pecking away, inputting data. Again, but it was things that needed to get done. So it's one of, you know, you lead by example. That person out front needs to be encouraging, and people want to follow that. They follow because of the respect and the engagement, not because of the position title or the authority that you're given, but you lead by example, and people will gladly jump on that bus and they'll follow you all over.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, and you've done that. You've done that really well. Well, I would say that for me, one of the things that I think is really important is to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. And I'm learning that very much here at Western Carolina University. We're like a mini town. We own a power company, Western Carolina Power Company. We own a dam, a waters works, our water treatment program. We own that. We've got 2,000 employees of all different kinds of folks. And so I've got folks around me who understand finances, who understand building. Right now I've got 4 or 5 building structures that are going on campus. I don't know anything about buildings or anything, but I trust those people. So I've got really smart people. IT, when I think about the importance of technology and the role that it plays in effectiveness and efficiency for an institution like Western, I've got to rely on that person. I don't know all the ins and outs. So I think having really, really smart people around me who know their areas and people that I trust and that I've allowed them to come and tell me things that they may not want to tell me, meaning, oh my gosh, Chancellor, this has just happened, right? And that to not lash back out at them, to say, okay, this has happened, how do we handle this? Because they've got to know that they can trust me to be able to work with them to be able to find a solution. I would say that that's a key. And if you haven't read the Good to Great book, you got to read it. It's a small little book, but I'm a firm believer in getting the right people on the bus in the right seat. And that what that means as a leader is sometimes there's good people around you, but sometimes they might be not in the right seat. And how do you move them around in that seat? And I think that's really important. Another thing you mentioned, I think back to my early leadership days and, kind of stepping in and being involved and, rolling up my sleeves. And one of the things I learned from a great friend of mine who was an anthropologist by training, she really, as a supervisor, would always say, you've got to sit in their chair. You've got to go out there and do the work that they're doing, right? And so if you want to understand the burnout, or if you want to understand what's happening at that front reception desk, you need to sit out there, right? If you want to understand what's happening out there in that lawn crew, you need to go out there. And I remember one time, it has to do with research, but this, I think, exemplifies it pretty well. We were working on a project with farm workers in South Florida, and there was a program around eye safety. And one of the things we decided to do was to understand what it meant to be a farm worker on an orange farm, harvesting oranges. We went out for a day and we climbed up trees. We carried those backpacks on it with all the pesticides around it, and we did that for a day. I'll tell you what, I learned more in a day around what it meant for those farm workers to go out there and do that work every day, 7 days a week during harvest season. And it gave me an insight of why wearing glasses to protect their eyes was not a priority for them. And so again, that always gave me the reason of like, get into their shoes, understand. And that's something else that I've learned as a leader is try to understand where they're at, where that person may be. Has been something that's carried with me for a long time.
What powerful lessons from both of you. I think I hear that.
Sum it up a little bit, identifying the people, their strengths, weaknesses, empowering them, and give them the ability to move forward and grow.
Absolutely.
Well said. Putting the right people around and then saying, okay, what do you need to succeed and how can I support that and bust those barriers down to help you along the way? Love it. Well, what else would you like for our audience to know about Western Carolina University, or you as this amazing couple that's leading in partnership there at Western Carolina University? What else would you like for the audience to know?
Well, if you haven't been on campus recently, there's been a lot of changes that are happening. We're in the process of building a new STEM building. It's going to be opening up next fall or next spring. It's going to bring the best and the greatest in the area of science and technology and math to our area. And I think we're excited. It's a $110 million building that we're excited about opening up for Western North Carolina, which I think it'll be great for our teachers and our educators in this area, as well as our students. We've got some residence halls that we're in the process of building. We've got a new parking deck that's going on. If you come on our campus, there's lots going on. We have performing arts. We've got athletics. We've got all sorts of arts. We've got a great Bardo Fine Arts Museum that is absolutely beautiful. So if you haven't been to Western, or you've been and you haven't been back for a while, may not be the perfect time right now with COVID-19 going on, but I encourage you to come back on campus, take a look at all that's happening. We encourage folks to come here. We believe that, you know, this institution is Western Carolina University, Western North Carolina's gym. It's for you, it's for our students. And so please feel free to come and join us here on all the wonderful things that we do.
Love it. Love it. Dennis, if you could leave our audience with one key message as leaders in our community, what would that message be?
After an extremely varied career, love everything that you do, every job that you go, love what you do. Because there's going to be days where you just go, what am I doing? But if you can take that and turn that around and go, you know, okay, how do I turn this? How do I make this and you know, an opportunity rather than a burden? And so you always look for that, and you always look to turn and grow. And one thing that was always key as I've progressed in careers was when I was asked to do something, I was very seldom that I opposed that. I said, well, okay, understand it. What can I do? And accept it. And so I took on things that helped me grow, which opened up other doors then. But if you narrow it to say, no, I can't do that because, you know, I've got to get off at 5 every day because I've got, you know, a gym appointment or something. You have to be adaptive and you have to leverage every opportunity to make yourself invaluable to that company, to others. And that's what you do, is you make yourself invaluable.
Love what you do. Chancellor, what would your key message be?
Oh, you're going to ask me too. I think you do have to really enjoy what you're doing. I will say that, you know, I am passionate about making sure that young people have an education. I think that changes the world. Dennis is a first generation graduate student. I am not. My father went to college. My mother did not. But I know that by going to college, that has made the world a difference. So I have always worked to make that happen. And so I think being passionate about what it is that you're doing, that passion will change a little bit over time. Mine first was teaching, now is more into leadership and that. But I think really enjoying what you're doing and that's what gets you up every morning. My job is different every day. I love it every day. I wouldn't change this for the world. Coming to Western Carolina University has been, I think, the best thing that we have ever done. And it's been, I wouldn't change it for anything, for nothing.
Well, thank you both so very much. Thank you for your leadership there at Western Carolina University. And thank you for sponsoring Leadership Cashiers. It's incredibly honoring that WCU serves such a great role in our community at large and that you're sponsoring this program that we're striving to grow and develop the leaders in the Cashiers community. So thank you both so very, very much. We greatly appreciate you and for the support that you're doing for our community where we live, work, and play, all right here together.
Okay, one last. Go Cats!
Yes, go Cats. Thank you both so very much.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks,
Angela.
Angela. Bye-bye.